sorry for the interruptions. We were at the synergies. The main function of synergies is to help with the agonist or to provide the proper background. In this diagram, you can see the function of agonist, antagonist, and synergist along with the fixator. How? This is a proper example of complete. Person is holding a weight with the hand, so fist formation. The one thing is the fist flexors are working, and what they are doing concentric contraction. Fine. One part is covered. The second one is the antagonist, which are the extensors. These are the flexors and these are the extensors. So that lady is holding the weight with the fist formation. So his flexors are working as the agonist, and these are the extensors. So wrist extensors are working as the antagonist. These are going into the lengthening and these are going into the shortening. Concentric contraction of agonist and the eccentric contraction, or you can say the relaxation or lengthening of the antagonist. So two things. Now, which muscles are synergist? At wrist. Long flexors of the wrist joint. Note it down. In fist formation, long flexors of the wrist act as long extensors of the wrist.
मैम आवाज चली गई।
मैम आवाज नहीं आ रही अब।
हेलो, अब आई? हेलो।
यस मैम, थोड़ी बहुत।
हाँ जी आ रही
ओके
है।
ओके ओके, चलिए आप स्टार्ट करते हैं। सो ओके, कुछ भी समझ नहीं आया, स्टार्ट से करो हम।
नहीं नहीं मैम, आप
मैम ये
कंटिन्यू
आते
करें।
हैं, आप आगे कहें, ये तो पढ़े हुए हैं पहले भी।
ओके
हाँ जी।
ओके, जस्ट डन, ठीक है। So we were at the synergist. Synergist help in the providing the proper background. So in the fist formation, note it down. The wrist flexors will act as an agonist. Wrist extensors, which are opposite of the agonist, are working as the antagonist. So these are the flexors and these are the extensors muscle. These muscles go into the concentric contraction and these muscles go into the eccentric contraction. So agonists are going into the shortening and they are responsible for holding this. They are responsible for closing. Therefore, responsible for making the fist. So antagonists allow this fist formation by lengthening. Now the synergist, if we are holding a weight, so there it can add the wrist flexion like this. But you can see in the diagram, the wrist is in the neutral position. By keeping this wrist in neutral position, it is adding the efficiency, stability. The proper stability of the wrist is required. Otherwise, it will damage the joint. So if you are holding a weight of 10 kg, you can hold it. But if it leads to the high flexion of the wrist, what will happen? It will damage the wrist joint. So the long extensors of the wrist joint will act as the synergist. So these are working, but along with these extensors muscle keeping this wrist in the neutral position. So these are the synergies. So in one movement, in one part, fist formation, there are agonist, antagonist, and synergist. And if we talk about the fixators are fixing the forearm muscle and the elbow joint. So fixators, basically they provide the proper efficiency with the proper background. You can add the example of the rotator cuff in fixators. Rotator cuff are present at the shoulder. It is a combination of four muscle sets. So rotator cuff will add the fixation at the shoulder joint and keep the head of humerus in the glenoid cavity. So along with these muscles, all the muscles of the trunk, all the muscles of the scapula, all the muscles of the lumbar, or the muscles of the spine, they always act as a fixator whenever we move, whenever we sit. Like right now, I'm sitting, I'm using my hand, but my scapular muscles, my trunk muscles, my lumbar muscles are providing the stability by fixation, by fixing the scapula in that position, by fixing the spine in that position, and by fixing the pelvis. So limb movements are mainly agonist and antagonist and along with the synergist, but the trunk is mainly for the fixation and stability. Now the nervous control. So after muscles, the second most important thing is the nervous control. Before going to nervous control, you can give example for the action of the muscles. So who will give the example of agonist, antagonist, synergist, and fixator? You can give the example of any part of your body. So who will start?
मैम मैं देती हूँ पहले.
Yes, Mahanur Akhtar, please give an example of
मैम
according to the muscle
हिप
action.
हिप फ्लेक्शन जब हम करते हैं तो जो हमारे प्राइम मूवर्स है उसमें प्रॉस मेजर आता है, साइनर्जिस्ट में इलियाकस, रेक्टस फेमोरस, एंटीरियर एडेक्टर या पेक्टिनियस और सार्टोरियस. मतलब अगर हम परफॉर्म करें तो हमें फिर बेसिकली सही तरीके से समझ आएगी. और एंटागोनिस्ट में हमारे पास जो ग्लूटियस मैक्सिमस, बाइसेप फेमोरस, मतलब ये सारे मसल्स आते हैं. और क्या कहते हैं जो न्यूट्रलाइजर्स होते हैं वो प्रॉस और इलियाकस ही दोनों आपस में मिलके वर्क करते हैं. और क्या कहते हैं एंटीरियर एडक्टर मसल जो होता है वो हमारा एक्सटर्नल और इंटरनल रोटेशन करवाता है.
Okay, very good, Mahanur. But
जी मैम.
you are adding so many muscles. Try to keep it simple. Take one moment, hip flexion. Hip flexion is done by the iliacus and the psoas
इलियाकस.
major.
यस मैम.
And the hip extension is done by the Gmax. So these are the agonist and the antagonist.
एंटागोनिस्ट.
Synergist, yes. You can add synergists and the fixators are of the lumbar region because you have to keep your lumbar, your back in the proper position. Very good effort, Manoj. Now,
यस
who
मैम.
will give the
थैंक यू
next
मैम.
example? You're welcome, beta. Now, who will give the next example?
मैम मैं देती हूँ.
Nimra Fatima.
मैम
Yes,
ये
Nimra.
एक्सटेंशन में yes. मैम ये एक्सटेंशन में जो हमारे पास एगोनिस्ट होंगे वो क्वाड्स होंगे हमारे नी एक्सटेंशन
Right.
में, और एंटागोनिस्ट जो होंगे वो हैमस्ट्रिंग होंगे. जो साइनर्जिस्ट है वो हमारे पास ग्लूटियस मैक्सिमस एंड सोलियस होंगे, और फिक्सेटर्स जो है वो एब्डोमिनल मसल्स होंगे, रेक्टस फेमोरस मसल्स.
Very good example, Nimra Fatima. Yes, students, in knee flexion, quadricep and hamstring will work because they are the muscles of the knee joint. But whenever you perform any movement of knee, you have to keep hip joint in neutral position. So that's why synergist is the Gmax. Any other example from any student?
Yes,
Ma'am,
ma'am.
shoulder flexion. Shoulder flexion.
Okay, Vakas, give the example of muscles. Name the
Ma'am,
muscles.
elbow flexion. Agonist biceps, antagonist triceps, synergist brachialis and brachioradialis. कुछ जगह लिखा हुआ है कॉनियस मसल है और some जगह शोल्डर मसल को
Rotator cuff. You can, if we whenever we perform elbow movement, we need the proper stability of head of femurs, and which is done with the help of the fixators, which is the rotator cuff. Okay, Ji. Very good effort, Vakas. Nimra Said. You
Yes,
also
ma'am.
want to give the example? Yes, Nimra.
मैम शोल्डर फ्लेक्शन में जो एगोनिस्ट होगा वो डेल्टॉइड मसल होगा, एंटागोनिस्ट में लेटिसमस आ जाएगा, और जो फिक्स करेगा यानी फिक्सेटर्स वो रोटेटर कफ मसल्स आ जाएंगे, और साइनर्जिस्ट में डेल्टॉइड एंटीरियर फाइबर्स, बाइसेप ब्रैकियाब, कोरेकोब्रैकियालिस एंड पेक्टोरालिस मसल्स आ जाएंगे.
So you are giving the example of shoulder abduction.
नो, शोल्डर फ्लेक्शन मैम.
Okay, in which muscles are agonist?
Ma'am, deltoid muscles.
Interior fibers of deltoid muscles.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, very good effort, Nimra Fatima. Any other student? Husnain, you want to give an example?
Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
Well,
I want to add an example.
yeah,
नी
sure.
फ्लेक्शन नी फ्लेक्शन में हमारे पास जो एगनिस्ट होते हैं वो हैमस्ट्रिंग होते हैं, जो एंटागनिस्ट होते हैं वो क्वाड्रिसेप्स होते हैं, और जो साइनर्जिस्ट होते हैं वो मीडियल कोलेटरल लिगामेंट होता है, और जो फिक्सेटर होते हैं वो साइनर्जिस्ट में हमारे पास वो आ जाते हैं गैस्ट्रोकनीमियस, सार्टोरियस, ग्रेजिलस और पोप्लिटियस। और हाँ जी बस।
And okay, beta. Hasnain,
यस मैम। मैम एगनिस्ट
you want?
ऑफ अपर आर्म में मैम, आर्म की जो मैम ये जो बाइसेप है मैम, ये जब कंट्रैक्ट करते हैं तो मैम फ्लेक्शन होती है आर्म की सिंपल।
Okay, so what are the antagonists in elbow flexion?
मैम वो एंटागनिस्ट में मैम इसके आ जाएगा वो ट्राइसेप्स आ जाएंगे।
Tricep. Very good.
यस
And
और
is there any
फिक्सेटर्स में
requirement of
फिक्सेटर्स में मैम ये डेल्टॉइड मसल्स आ जाएंगे।
Yes, deltoid will act as a fixator. And
यस
what
मैम।
about the
और
synergies?
साइनर्जिस में मैम ब्रैकियलिस और ब्रैकोब्रैकियलिस, यस मैम ये वाले आ जाएंगे।
Okay, very good effort, students. So let's start with the next important part, which is required for the coordinated movement, nervous control. It can be done with the help of motor pathways, cerebral cortex, cerebellum, and the kinesthetic sensation. Motor pathway, simply the motor nerve supply. You are familiar with the nerve supply of all the muscles. So muscles are supplied by the afferent impulses. If the nerve supply is not intact, muscles will not be able to contract. So anyone can tell me the nerve supply of tricep? Nerve supply. What is the nerve supply of tricep?
यस मैम, वो मस ट्राइसेप्स की हमारे पास
Radial nerve.
रेडियल नर्व होती है।
Yes, radial nerve. So one
Auxiliary muscle होती है।
yes, radial nerve is the nerve supply of the tricep. So for the contraction of muscle, the first thing, which is the basic one, is the motor pathway, which means afferent impulses or the motor nerve supply. So if there is no nerve supply, the muscle will not able to contract. This is the most simple one, motor pathways. With the help of these muscle will contract. The second thing is the cerebral cortex. This is the brain is divided into three parts. The one is the cerebral cortex. The second one is the cerebellum, and the third one is the your hind brain, which consists of the brainstem and medulla oblongata. So cerebral cortex is the major part. You can see in the diagram the upper part of the cerebellum is the cerebral. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
यस मैम।
यस मैम।
Okay. The next most important part is the cerebral cortex. This is the main center for planning. Whatever we plan any movement, whatever we do any movement, all these plannings come from the cerebral cortex. So this is the you can say that this is a center for the planning. Suppose I asked you to stand up. The standing up required the movement of the hip, knee, and foot, along with the upper limb movements. So this standing up, this planning is stored in the cerebral cortex. Brain has different part. The one is the cerebral cortex. The second one you can see this. The red part is the cerebellum, the smaller one, but this is the coordination center. Cerebral cortex is the planning center. cerebellum is the coordinating center. Okay? So these will integrate with each other. So all these activities are started from the brainstem. Whenever there is a stimulus, it goes to the brainstem. So brainstem is the initiation center. This is the brainstem, the longer one. Pons and the medulla, both are collectively. So brainstem initiate or send the signal. They send the signal to the cerebellum. Cerebellum will coordinate, and the cerebellum will then further give instruction to the cerebral cortex to perform that movement. So the cerebral cortex will plan all the activity. So I asked you to hold the pen. The holding of the pen requires your elbow movement, wrist movement, and hand movement. Then you're gripping. So you're like trying to hold the pen. So this planning, okay, how much contraction of agonist, how much relaxation of the antagonist, and how much degrees of the flexion and extensions are required. These all are stored in the cerebral cortex. So whenever we started performing any activity, those plans will stored in the cerebral cortex. So when the signals come from the body and they go to the brainstem, which is the initiation center, then this cerebellum will coordinate and give command to the cerebral cortex to perform the proper skilled planned pattern. The next one is the cerebellum. This is the main center of coordination. If there is a damage of cerebellum and the muscles are absolutely fine, the muscles are intact, but the cerebellum is not fine, there is an injury of cerebellum, there is a lesion of cerebellum, or there is a pathology of cerebellum, a person will not be able to perform any kind of coordinated activity. Are you familiar with the Parkinsonism? Have you ever seen a patient of Parkinsonism? Those patients, whenever they try to move, their hands will shiver. Whenever they perform, they kept on moving. They are not able to perform any activity. The main thing is the loss of that coordinated movement. So cerebellum receives all the signals from the spine, from the trunk, and the vestibular nucleus. So it receives signals from three major parts: the periphery, you can say it is the spine. All the signals from the periphery, from the limbs, go to the spine, and the spine will send to the cerebellum. Then the cerebral cortex coordinate with the cerebellum for the planning, and the vestibular nucleus. We have to keep our eyes, our neck in the correct position. So whenever we are performing, we are integrating all the movement with the eyes. So cerebellum integrate all these three parts and it is responsible for the skilled movements. So if there is any injury of cerebellum, there will be a loss of coordinated movement. All the muscles will be fine. There will be the proper planning. There will be stored patterns. But what will happen? The cerebellum will not coordinate properly with these three areas. The kinesthetic sensation. This is new for you. There are so many receptors in our body. So you're familiar with the proprioceptors, or you can say that the sensory receptors, which are these muscle spindle and the Golgi tendon organs. So these are responsible for our position. If I close my eyes, but I still know that my hand is closed. If there is no light, we can still move in our home. How? Because these movements and these patterns are stored in these receptors, which are known as the proprioceptors. The Golgi tendon or the muscle spindle, they are responsible for the calculation of muscle contraction and the muscle relaxation. So if we are not even looking at anything, we can perform those activities. Why? How? Because with the help of these proprioceptors. Because when we started performing an activity again and again, the Golgi tendon organ and the muscle spindle store those things, those contraction, those amount of contraction, and those amount of relaxation. So next time we don't need to concentrate. They will keep muscles in that pattern, in that contraction and that lengthening. So they know how to perform that movement. For standing up, which movements are required? For going up to the stairs, which movements are required? So whenever you perform these activities, these are stored in the body. So with the help of these receptors, we are able to know our space, our joint space in our surroundings. So with the help of these receptors, we can integrate our body position. So in the case of loss of kinesthetic sensation, the patient will be able to perform activity. There is no problem with the muscle. There will be no problem with the impulses. There will be no problem with the coordination. There will be the problem with the sensation. Patient will not able to sense. Maybe he will not able how much contraction is required and how much relaxation is required. That part will be lost. And there are chances of the patient fall. In this case, because the patient is unaware of his position. Any question?
No, ma'am.
Cerebellum lead to motor ataxia. Sensory kinesthetic sensation will lead to the sensory ataxia. Now the next one is the incoordinated movements. So whenever the movements are not smooth as per our requirement, they become arrhythmic. It means there is swaying from the normal. If you are trying to use the pen and you are writing and the hand is kept on shivering. So what is this? This is arrhythmia. Irregular movements, and these are the inaccurate movements, which are basically because of the loss of the harmonious activity of the muscle along with the lines of the brain, nervous control. So these are the four types of incoordination: the flaccidity, spasticity, cerebral ataxia, and the motor ataxia, which is also known as the flaccidity. The first incoordination cause is the flaccidity. Whenever there is an injury of lower motor neurons, whenever there is an injury of motor pathways, or the injury of the nerve supply, motor supply, the muscle will become flaccid. In case of the foot drop, there is the injury of the sciatic nerve. The sciatic nerve injury leads to the weakness of the muscles, so there is the foot drop. All the muscles which are supplied by the sciatic nerve will become hypotonic. They will become weak. So with this weakness, the person will not be able to perform any kind of activity. The reason is their impulses are not reaching to the muscles, and secondly, with the passage of time, the muscle will not be in that state. If a person is in the hypertonicity or in the flaccidity from the last 2 months, so what will be the condition of the muscles? They will become hypertonic and there will be the contracture, they will become shortened. So with the loss of impulses and with the changing in the muscle condition, the muscle structure, the person will not be able to perform the proper activity. And you can check this flaccidity with the help of manual muscle testing. The next type is the spasticity. The spasticity means stiff or tightened structures. In this, the impulses are intact, the impulses are reaching at the muscle, but the problem is this: the muscle is not able to relax. The muscle remain in the extreme contraction and it doesn't go to the relaxation. So when a muscle is not relaxing, how the movement can be performed? So for the performance of a movement, the proper relaxation is also required. Cerebral ataxia. This is also known as the motor ataxia. In this, the person is able to perform all the movements, but whenever that person performs that movement, it leads to the addition of some extra movements. Like we have studied in the walking aids, we have to give the rollator frame to the person with the ataxia. Ataxia means irregular movement, because it wasn't possible for that person to hold that frame up and put it in the forward position. So in these muscles, in these conditions, the patient is fine. He can perform the activity, but the activities are not so accurate. There is more loss of the coordinated movement. The muscles are mostly in the hypotonic conditions, and the patient, there is fatigue, extreme fatigue. Because in case of the cerebral ataxia, there is loss of the coordinated movement and the muscle become extreme hypertonic, and there is a loss of efficient movements. So there is more contraction and there is less output. So input and output doesn't remain the balance, so it will lead to the extreme fatigue, and patient is aware of that fatigue. They are not able to perform all their activities. They become very lethargic in a very short duration. The next one is the sensory ataxia. In case of the damage of the receptors, proprioceptors, the person will not be able to sense the joint position. So he will not be able to recognize the contraction or relaxation. He will kept on performing the activities. He will kept on performing those activities without being in the knowledge of those movements, and it leads to the extreme fatigue. So when after some duration, when a person takes rest, what will happen? He will be in the extreme fatigue. So this example, the one example is the tabes dorsalis. This is also a kind of the infection which is of the myelinated nerve fibers. This infection destroys the myelination sheet of the nerves, and the patient will not be able to sense. Even there is a loss of the bladder control, and there will be the diminished reflexes. He will not be able to sit or stand, and all the movement will gradually lose with the passage of time. So it was all about the neurological coordination. The two things, the first was the introduction of the coordinated movement, which is done by the help of the group action of the muscle, and the second one is with the help of the nervous control. And the next one is the incoordinated movement. For the incoordinated movement, the four types of layings we have studied. The one is the flaccidity, which is because of the lower motor neuron layers, and the upper motor neuron layers lead to the spasticity. And in case of the cerebellum laying, it leads to the destruction or the coordination center. So it leads to the ataxic or abnormal movement pattern. And the next one is the sensory ataxia, which leads to the loss of sensations, and the patient will not be aware of the body position and the right amount of the contraction and relaxation required for the movement. So the ongoing lesson for you: you are not mean for crawling, so don't. You have wings. Learn to use them and fly. So right now in this condition, we are limited with so many resources, but we have to learn how we can use those resources for our benefits, for studies. So always use your sources, and you have wings. It means you can do everything. Only you need guts to perform those things. Thank you. Any question, class? Between the cerebral ataxia and the sensory